Instance maps? Static maps? The ability to manage your world's different maps and the way players move between them is a cool feature to take advantage of in your next world's creation, but it can be overwhelming to grasp the concepts of what's going on. Don't worry though, by the end of this video, you'll wonder why you were ever intimidated by these concepts. Okay, so what is an instance room? Let's go over all of that right now. Let's start with the instance room first, and then we'll later go into instance world. So first, we have to understand the concept of rooms. So a room is a scene or a map in the world that contains the player and all other world entities. So it's basically one map, and you can have multiple of these maps, and each map is either designated as either a static room or an instance room. Now the difference between these two is that the static room is a shared room across all players in your world, whereas an instance room is dynamically created and destroyed. So what this means is that when you enter a static room, everybody that's in the world will also be sharing that same room. And there's only one instance ever that can exist for a static room. So all players will share this one static room, but an instance room can be duplicated and then dynamically created. So you can kind of push some players into this, and you can copy a map and have some players enter this instance, other players enter this instance. So let's say there's like 20 players in a map, but only 4 players per match. Then you can kind of create an instance of the game map and only match 4 players per instance. So that's essentially how we will be utilizing both the static and the instances. At the current moment of this tutorial recording, there is a maximum of 100 players. The first map that the player will enter is going to be a static map. So everybody will start and enter the static map that you designate as the starting static map. And then afterwards, you can move between static maps, you can create instances, things like that. So as I mentioned, a map must be assigned either a static or an instance upon its creation. So we can see that we have map 1, map 2, map 3, and 4. But notice that you can't find these inside of the instance rooms. Whereas you can see certain maps that have been created. We can see map 11, 12, 13, and 14 have the same map being copied in instance room B, and instance room C has its own set of maps, map 21 and 22, that has been used to create this instance room C. So within a static room, all maps will be shared, and there can only ever be a single instance of this static map. Instance maps can be duplicated, dynamically created, and destroyed depending on its need. So in this example, we have a static room with several players, and they are all sharing this single static room. Let's say, for example, we have another room, and this room is designated as an instance room. And let's say that in this world, we want to move players that are ready into their own instance of the map. So anytime a player gets ready, they will be kind of split up into their own instance rooms. So from the static room, we will send the people that are ready into their own instances, and subsequent players will each be moved 3 at a time. Let's say the max player count for this game is 3. From the static room, they will be matched together and moved into this instance room. So this instance map that we have created, we're creating a copy of this instance map and sending players from this static room into the instance room 3 at a time. So here we have a little bit more complex of a diagram, but it's essentially the same thing. We have the static room with map 1, 2, and 3, and these 3 maps can be freely moved between. However, from a static room to an instance room, you cannot freely move between them. We have to separately create the instance room first, designate which maps should be part of that instance room, and then select the players to be transferred into the instance room. So it's not just going to be a simple kind of move back and forth that you can with the static maps. However, after you send players into this instance room, the maps that have been designated to be part of this instance room can be freely moved between as if they were static rooms. Another note is that you cannot freely move between instances either. So from instance room A, you cannot move to instance room B. Meaning, from an instance room, you cannot create another instance room and move players there. You first have to move the players back to the static room, and then create the instance room B and move them there. Same thing with subsequent instances, you have to move players back to the static room, create the instance map from the static room, and move players there. So you cannot move from one instance to another. You cannot create an instance from an instance room. You have to move back to the static, then move into the instance room. Today we've done an overview of static maps and instance maps as well as the differences between the two. Static and instance maps can be a powerful tool when used effectively, so please take advantage of what you learned today to apply them to your own worlds. Happy creating!